Yeah, it's perfect. All right. So welcome again back to our podcast. We haven't done it forever ago, but we're doing it again, and we're here. My name is Paul, and these other two guys are.
Charles.
I'm David.
Got a blast. And today we want to cover
I'm David Demesquita. My Instagram name is the Shameless Slide In Dynamite D. I'm sure everyone knows about it at this point.
pretty much.
Charles, do we have to introduce you?
Oh, no. Charles Vogel at Charles_Vogel on IG.
And today we're talking about training, as usual, because not a lot of people know how to do it.
Yeah. So I guess let's talk about like fundamental pieces of training, right? So I think that like a question that I get a lot is like, what's the perfect split, right? I think that's a good topic to talk about, right? And I think that we're Charles already scratching his head. I think we're all going to say there is no such thing as a perfect split for anyone, right? It's all about the way that I look at training, at least, is overall volume in a week. How much volume do you need to put on that muscle or that muscle group? And how do you not tax a muscle group before you need that muscle group again for, say, stability or something like that? So Charles and I were talking just recently about PPL splits, push-pull leg. And we love push-pull leg splits. Now, the issue is saying
pull, push leg.
Exactly.
So like push-pull.
Yeah. So the issue that we talked about is that it's called push-pull leg. But you pull before you do a leg day, it taxes your lower lumbars. So then you're taxed going into your leg day, and you're probably not going to be able to compound movement as much. Exactly. So that's the issue with calling push-pull leg. I mean, it's just called push-pull leg, but yeah. All my push-pull leg protocols that I give to my clients will never have a pull day before a leg day. Why? Because you tax the auxiliary muscles and the stabilizing muscles. So go ahead, Charles.
No, and that's I've taken the PPL style training and I've modified it throughout the years. I've done like a push-pull, rest legs and then rest again, kind of like a 4-day cycle.
Yep.
Or I've done legs push-pull, LPP. I've done LPP before. Some people can handle it. Some people can't. Like, it doesn't bother me just from like the years of like powerlifting and the style of training that I've done that I can handle like doing a leg day, doing a push day, and then I'm good for a pull day. Like I can just, for me, it's when you look at it, it's SBD. That's a powerlifting day. It's a squat, bench, deadlift. So leg, push, pull would be squat, bench, dead. So, and it kind of primes, in my opinion, it'll prime your body and your CNS for that style of training. And considering like, if you are moving to powerlifting, your body will be able to handle like those 3 lifts in a consecutive manner. So, but yeah, when it comes to training, we've had this conversation multiple times. Whatever your lagging muscle group is, like when you want to build a program, it's like, okay, whatever your lagging muscle group, what you want to grow the most, it's 3 days in a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday, however you want to split it up, you need to hit that, you need to have the frequency on that, like set that and then build everything else around that muscle group. And that's, in my opinion, and it's just opinion, doesn't mean it's science. But I think that's going to yield the best results, because it's like when you and I mentioned about, growing arms, and for me, like growing shoulders was an increased frequency on the muscle for 8 to 12 weeks. And then you pull back the frequency, and it's like, the amount of compound stress you put on that muscle, you're not growing in that 8 to 12 weeks, but you pull back on the frequency and the body's like, okay, well, let's fucking recover and grow now.
Yeah. So let's talk about how to overload in a second. But I do want to talk about your leg push pull. So leg push pull is actually my favorite style and my favorite routine to go through. Reason being is you can get 2 leg days in a week without having issues. You just do a leg day on a Monday and a leg day on a Friday.
Yep.
Whether you have to back off on that Friday or not is ultimately dependent on recovery time, like you're saying. And that's just like my personal experiences. That's probably my favorite push-pull leg split is actually in that sequence. And then that Saturday is essentially like you're talking about, the frequency around it is Do I need to focus on more of a pushing or a pulling? And is it that I need to pull up my arms? Maybe you need to pull up your arms completely and you have an arm day, right? So that can be like almost like a free filler day. Or you could even hit that legs on a Saturday, but you really have to go lower on the volume so that you don't tax your nervous system before you smash it on Monday. Like one of those 2 days has to be a hard leg day, no matter what. So that's kind of like where that recovery factor comes in my personal experience. So Paul, what about you?
Push pull legs. I hate push pull legs, off push pull legs, or leg push pull off leg push pull, or anything that involves me training six times a week with one off day. I don't like it. It's just way too much. Maybe I'm just kind of like being a bitch about it, but it's just way too much. Shut up, Charles. It's just way too much, and I think there are other ways of that, especially if you're a beginner and you're very new to training. Yes, it's very optimal because you're training every body part like twice a week during the entire week. But if you're a beginner, I think you should focus more on the recovery aspect of it. Doing like leg push pull, off leg push pull, or push pull legs, or whatever kind of variation there is to it, might possibly hinder your recovery. So what I do is, Dave also has me on it, but I think I like this a lot better. It's push pull legs. You take an off day, upper lower, and now you have 2 off days. With those 2 off days, you can recover a lot better, perform much better. Now you have a little bit of break in between, and your cortisol levels aren't completely shot, especially if you're just a beginner or you're a natural or whatever. That's how I approach it. In terms of like fixing lagging body parts, I always start whatever my body part is, it's lagging first, so I can get it out the way, and then that way I can focus on everything else that doesn't need to have that much attention, and also increase overall frequency on these lagging body parts while you're hitting them at the same time at the start of the exercise helps a lot with growth, and that's what I've kind of been doing, and it's been working great. But I always try to be very mindful of recovery in terms of push-pull legs and being able to hit the muscle group twice a week. And then if it's something's lagging, make sure I start that first, so that way it gets all the attention it deserves. Because sometimes when you have a lagging body part and do it at the end, you're like, I don't feel like doing this after doing all this like heavy training. So some people just forget. So that's my opinion on it. Push-pull legs is a great routine, but to me, it's not great when it's 6 times a week.
Yeah. So you were talking about off days. I just want to jump on that topic before we jump off of it. So Charles kind of alluded to it earlier very briefly, and probably no one caught it, but he was talking about basically a style of training where you get more off days in a week. The best muscle growth I've ever got in my entire life is 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 1 day off. So you're training technically 3.5 days in a week. And because you're always constantly recovering and taking those off days and it's more of a cortisol response and a recovery response than anything else. All that you do is you focus on going in the gym and you completely fail out on your working move sets. Then you're not putting strain on the joints and the muscle and the tendons and the ligaments and all that stuff, because you're getting that downtime. And then you go back to the gym, you're refreshed, and you freaking smash it. And then what ends up happening is the volume load over time, if you're just talking about weights and reps, is increasing. So you're forced to gain. Now, so that was the off days. So I just want to throw that out there. And then you also talked about the beginners taking more off days. So it's really interesting. If you look at beginners tend to train 6 or 7 days a week, and they actually recover relatively well. They get sore, but they recover relatively well, and they can keep pounding away and pounding away and pounding away. And it's because their body adjusts so quickly. But then you hit this like weird curve, and it's more of like not an advanced lifter, but a medium grade lifter, where they need like time off to recover. So in the beginning, it's like they training too much, and then they end up taking the time off and they end up recovering better because they're soreness. But then they hit this medium curve where they're starting to get more advanced in their lifting techniques, and they start training 6 to 7 days a week, and they're do okay with it, right? And then what ends up happening is they end up starting to take off days again when they become an advanced lifter, because we need off days when we're pushing so much weight and volume. And we've probably gotten injured enough from being a medium lifter to an advanced lifter during that time because we didn't give our bodies the time to recover. So it's like that weird curve that we go through, becoming from a beginner all the way to an advanced, and the advanced lifters take more time off than the beginning lifters and the medium lifters. And I think I wish in the beginning I did take more off time, especially in the medium phases, and I would have had a lot more muscle growth during that time. And I also probably wouldn't have gotten injured as much. So I thought that was interesting, Paul, that you alluded to that. And I want Charles' opinion. Charles has been lifting actually longer than either of us. So let's get into this. And also, from a powerlifting perspective, it's definitely different than bodybuilding as well, because bodybuilding, you can manipulate variables through the week and drop out movements to kind of get to it. But when you're talking about major heavy compound movements, do you notice the same thing when like it's going from beginners where you smash it a ton and then you're super sore, so you actually start taking off days, and then you go to like your medium grade lifters and then they don't take off days, and then they go back to taking off days because the volume load just gets so high you feel like you get hit by a dump truck every day?
So, and you're starting to see that a lot in a lot of these younger generations of powerlifters coming through, man. They're doing like SBD days every week. So they'll literally do like, their training will be like Monday would be like a squat, a bench, a dead. Then they'll do like a rest day and then literally do a full SBD day. So they'll hit squat, bench, and dead in the same day, and they'll rest 2 days. And but a lot of the top level powerlifters, Ashton Rusta, which is Recky Rusta, was literally doing an SBD, like a meet every weekend is what he would do, is in his eyes. He'd do like a meet every weekend. And Jamal Browner does it. I know a lot of top level powerlifters that do SBD days every weekend, and they'll push like, the intensity, like, squat, bench, dead throughout Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, basically is how I'm going to say it. Like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They'll push that, and they'll have like, maybe Thursday, Friday off. And when they hit Saturday, or if they hit Friday, they'll pick one of the 3 lifts to push. And the other 2 lifts are kind of like a little bit more volume. And the next week they'll change it around. And it's kind of weird that you're seeing this. Is like, I remember when I was younger, which was fucking forever ago, like in high school, the training was, we would train Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And it was like, but you were doing full body. You were hitting. And I literally remember the gym setup was like, you do squat, you do bench press, you do deadlifts or RDLs, you do overhead press, you do one machine, and then we'd be doing power cleans and like lat pull downs, and you would cycle through all those for sets. So you're hitting like a lot of your big movements Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then like on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would come in and hit like auxiliary muscles, like my shoulders or my arms. And the thing is, at a younger age, and each time, so every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it wasn't always the same. So, and the way I would explain it to someone, if you're young and you want to do it and you want to overlap all these larger muscle groups, let's say Monday, you're hitting back squat, you're hitting flat bench, you're doing RDLs, overhead press. We'll just say that. So then Wednesday, you want to hit the same style muscle groups. Now you're going to do front squats, you'll do incline bench press, you'll do dumbbell press, and then you do another movement. And you, in a sense, you're still hitting like a type of squat, a type of bench, and a type of deadlift, but you're cycling through each one. So each time you hit it, you're hitting the same muscle group, but you're hitting a different manner. Like a back squat is like, a back squat versus front squat is a completely different activation. People don't understand that. So it's a different level of fatigue. And you can do that. Like if you do have 3 days a week, you can do that. I do it like, it's the old school AB method. So you pick an A and B day. Monday would be A, Wednesday would be B, Friday would be A, and you just cycle through those. And that way you can hit like full bodies, and you have a fuck ton of rest between, because you have rest on Tuesday, Thursday, and then a double on the weekend. But that's old school. That's like old school stuff.
Yeah. So and if you're looking from a bodybuilding perspective, that's not the best way to bodybuild, right? But for athletes,
for a beginner,
it's not bad. And also for athletes, young athletes, I think that technique is fine. First off, and I know we're keeping this on the natural side, but being a natural young athlete, your growth hormone, your testosterone levels should be through the freaking roof. Like you can't get injured. Why? Because if you get injured, you recover so quickly, because your IGF-1 scores is so super physiological that like no one could even put that into their bodies if they wanted to. Like it's impossible to get there. And that's, I think, a lot of things that people forget about is when you're in high school, like you're going through puberty, like you literally can still do muscle hyperplasia. So I'm not going to get too complex into it, but muscle hyperplasia is essentially the creation of new muscle tissue. And you cannot, as an adult, muscle hyperplasia hardly ever, if ever, occurs unless if something variables come into the equation. But our main body's objective when we train is muscle hypertrophy, to get the muscles stronger by recruiting the satellite cells. Like I'm not going to get too scientific into it, but just from the young male perspective, you can freaking annihilate yourself and your body's going to find a way to create new tissue. That we don't have once we're adults. Once we're through puberty, that's over. So that's a really interesting that you kind of like, you threw me back to like my high school days, because I trained my junior and senior year. And the best thing is so funny. So my buddy was like, I started skyrocketing in all his lifts, right? I'm like, dude, are you taking something or something like that? And he's like, no. Well, it's funny because he's like, no, he's like, I actually started sleeping 8 hours a day and like my lifts just keep going up. He's like, the more I sleep, the more I lift. And then I was like, what? So I started, instead of playing World of Warcraft late at night, I was like, oh, let me give it a shot, right? And within like a month period of time, I jumped up like 80 to 100 pounds. And I'm like, what is going on? And like, I didn't know any of the signs behind it. He was just like, yeah, just sleep. You'll get stronger. And like, all of a sudden I started sleeping. And what do you know? You look back and like growth hormone, testosterone production, all of it's done at nighttime. So it all makes sense.
And that was me, like as a kid too. I was getting like freakishly strong, and like I remember, like even when I was in high school, like I've always had a big back. Of course, like it is a genetic factor, and it's just years of compound like movements and like how I've trained it. Like I remember like doing pull-downs. My buddy's like, "Why do you have like a 6-pack on your back?" And but I was just that dude. Like, and I seriously like during athletics, I was training. I would come in after school and I would train more, and I just kept compounding. But like, dude, I was sleeping. I was active at home. My NEAT was super high, so my body was like just recovering all the time. Versus like, and I think it's so cool. You see now, like a lot of for like bodybuilders, we're pushing NEAT because people don't understand. Like, if you have a higher level of NEAT, you're going to recover better. You see all these athletes. Oh man, I'm doing like 3 hours of cardio. It's like, well, because you wake up, you do your fasted cardio, you have an inactive job, or you sit on your ass watching Netflix because you're tired, because you're low calories, and then they have to prescribe you more cardio because you're being so inactive throughout the day.
Yeah, so like that's referring to like literally my post the other day. It's like literally things that you don't even feel like would happen to you, and you're just burning more calories through the day, and you're recovering better, and like that's it. Like you're burning more body fat without having to do anything. Sleep, NEAT. I forgot what other ones I posted about, but NEAT is really interesting in the sense that as you drop calories and as you increase cardio, like you're saying, you get more tired. Therefore, you stop doing as much NEAT. And us being in more sedentary life, NEAT has reduced. So the good thing is, from a coaching perspective, is calories and cardio are trackable. NEAT is not. The only way you can track NEAT, really, and the easiest way, is with steps. Yup, exactly, with steps. So the best way to track calories in versus calories out, and like I hate Seco, but the best way to track like NEAT and overall activity in a day is literally steps. So that's why, me personally, I'm not going to tell someone to go on an assault bike if I can have them go outside and walk and I have a trackable variable. Because why? If you're hitting 10,000 steps in a day, that's a pretty damn good amount of steps. Like that, people don't understand that. Like the people that are active, they're like always hitting 10,000 steps in a day. And then you take someone that's not active and you ask me to do 10,000 steps in a day, and I lose 6 pounds in 3 days, 4 days.
Yeah.
Why? Because I went from literally a sedentary lifestyle where I'm always sitting at a desk to doing 10,000 steps in a day. That's cardio for me at that point.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So Paul, let's hear, you've been kind of sitting there, so let's hear kind of like your thoughts on like the topics that we're talking about.
So with what we're talking about, I actually do have an interesting question. We are talking about beginners and how they're able to recover a lot quicker from injuries. Would you say they should train more frequently and harder?
for beginners more frequently and harder. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Personally, and this is just it's always an opinion based, but most people that have come to me and have been beginners, when I increase their frequency, they're fresh, they're going to recover, especially younger age, like we were talking about. Is frequency is great because you're essentially overlapping, like you're compounding up, breaking down muscle tissue. So I say it like this, like, let's say if someone comes in, they're doing like, a push-pull style method, like kind of what we do. We're advanced, so like we need to recover more because that's how we're going to stimulate more growth. These people don't have that much muscle tissue. So it's like, if they're hitting a muscle group, like that's why, like, I used to, like, for me, I genuinely think the old school Arnold style training worked because I was literally doing, and I did the 2 days at once, where I would like wake up Monday and it was like, chest and back, and then legs in the evening, then shoulder arms in the morning, then rest, and I was doing that. I was hitting every muscle group 3 times a week. I was natty, I was young, but I could recover from it. And then you look at the point, like, I remember a buddy went to me and said, dude, what are you taking? And I was like, I'm not. But it's because I was young and I was recovering from it so much. It's like what you're doing in a 9-month period, I did in 3 months. Like the amount of volume you did in 9 months, I was doing in 3 months.
Yeah. So you also have to take into account, like, for whatever reason, beginners, they like muscle protein synthesis is just higher. It actually reduces down really quickly. Like you only have like the newbie gains, right? Where you can actually push that for a short period of time.
Yeah.
And like some people are lucky where if they're going through puberty, they have the entire puberty, right? Puberty is completely different when it comes into the equation because of the hormone production. But when you're talking about like new beginners, like they get sore really easily, but they recover really quickly too. And why? Because their volume isn't as high as us. You hit this curve, like it's that curve that we're talking about, where like your weight and your reps just get so high, you feel like you get hit by a dump truck. In the beginning, you're not doing that. So I believe that more along the lines of compound movements and the stimulation versus annihilation, because you stimulate and you feel like you get annihilated, but you recover so much quickly from it. So it's almost like coming off an injury where you can take advantage of the time of doing less volume and stimulating it a ton, and you will get so much muscle growth out of it. Why? Because you don't need to lift as much weight and you can recover quicker from it no matter what. Like it's just less overall load on the body. Like I said, puberty just completely throws everything out the window. You can throw anything at someone that's going through puberty and they're going to grow from it. Someone that is out of the puberty range, you probably have like 3 to 6 months, potentially a year to 2 years if you're lucky, where you get those like newbie gains, and then you have to start recovering in due time. So that's just my personal experience with it and my relative experience working with other athletes. Now, one thing that is trending though is younger athletes don't produce as much testosterone as we used to, like natural. It's down 50% if you look at studies. Yep. And it's like, I don't know if it's an environmental factor or the food factor, but it's probably a combination of two. I suspect it's environmental as well as food.
100%.
But because we don't get the micronutrients that we used to from our food, which is, and you're not talking about macronutrients at that point, you're talking about micronutrients. And then on top of it, like you have society that is allowing us to like baby our youth, and there isn't as much of the drive to succeed and to live, like to actually live. And that, I believe, has had an impact as well on the cognitive functionality piece of the animalistic nature. And the issue is if you don't take animalistic people, put them with animalistic people, then they get downsized into the environment. Because 50% of our brain capacity is essentially environmental, and the other 50% we're born with. So that environment is so important, and we're not really talking about it, but in the studies, we're seeing almost a 50% reduction in testosterone. It's 40 to 50% in the young populace, like 18 to 24 years old or 18 to 28 years old. Like the testosterone levels are just not the same. And I personally am seeing it in blood work actually now, where these younger guys are coming to me and they're like, hey, like I want to jump on something, right? And I'm just like, no, you don't need it. And I was like, and I'm not going to let you anyways, but I was like, let's run some blood work. Let's see what we can do. And I'm telling you right now, my levels were coming back higher at a much older age than theirs are.
Jeez.
Like they're like, I'm seeing the 400s and the 500s, and that's not improvement. I've seen the 300s on an 18-year-old actually. And I'm like, okay, well, let's try to reboot you and let's try to basically enhance your natural testosterone production with natural testosterone boosters and see how high we can go and how much progress we make. So that is that puberty thing that we're talking about. It's changing. And so it may
They literally are turning us into females.
yeah, and it's a big societal issue, man. Like, and people just aren't talking about it. Like, it's weird because like, and I'm not trying to like stereotype or anything like that, but like when some of my like Korean friends, like the women would say that they're not attracted to Korean men anymore because the society has gotten like so soft in the males. And whereas like Japanese is super, super strict and they're very, very dominant, and that it is what it is, right? Like that's who they stay with. So it's just interesting how society has slowly changing, but we're also seeing as society changes, like literal blood work and data points on it. Now, is data everything? Absolutely not. I'd be lying if I said it was, but it gives you a roadmap and an idea of kind of what's going on. I think it's cool.
Yeah. Oh, shit, that's crazy. I didn't know it was that bad.
Yeah, I think it was Brad Schoenfeld posted something on it just recently, and it was like a macro study of it. Really interesting. I didn't realize it was down that much, but I knew it was down because I've personally seen blood work, and I'm just like, how are you so low right now? It's like, you're so young. And like, I've seen like 300 and 400 test scores, and their IGF, like they're still going through puberty because their IGF-1 scores are like 800 or 900. Like, it's like crazy how high they are. And I'm just like, dang. I was like, okay, well, let's see what we can do.
I almost felt we're almost starting to see a resurgence of maybe that the younger kids with like higher testosterone too, because what the anomalies that we're seeing through like powerlifting, even just bodybuilding, is that some of these younger kids are like there's a 18-year-old kid who squats like 900 plus pounds raw.
What?
Raw. Yes. He's like 300. I mean, he's a big kid, but it's 900 pounds at like 18 years old. That's why. So I think we are seeing this drop in people, but we're seeing like the people who are like fighting it back. Like the few kids that are like, that were in the group of like just soft people. They're like, I want to be hard. And then it's like, they became, we're just like, whoa, what the hell is this? Like, like, how is that? Because, and it's true. You see it a lot in even like the animal kingdom. Like if there's too little of this, like there's something that becomes too much. Like when everything's down here, when this becomes normalized, something is like, I don't want that, and fights out of it.
Interesting. So I guess conceptually I never thought about it that way. So my friend just sent me a picture of a guy, and I thought he was it's a #1 draft recruit, right? I thought it was from the NCAA into the NFL, right?
Yeah.
The dude was in high school. It said high school, and I had to double check it because I thought it was going to say the high school that he came from and then what college he was at, but it was literally just the high school. And he's squatting 700 plus pounds and has like, I think it was like a low 4.4 40-yard dash. And I'm just like, the dude looked like Phil Heath, and he was like 17 years old or something like that. Like, what?
Well, the crazy thing with this too is spoken about is certain supplements these younger kids are just getting off shelves, and
that's going to cause an issue down the road that we're going to see. We're already seeing it, like we've kind of talked about what they're dabbling with and how it's affecting their blood work. And I've gone on podcasts time and time again and talk about it. And it's kind of scary that it's just like, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know.
When I was younger, if you took creatine, it's like, oh man, you must be on something. You take creatine.
Yeah, exactly. Like, bro, I just took HMB. I'm yoked. My protein synthesis is through the roof.
But back today, like, open up my muscle tech pack of like 20 capsules. I'm like, oh, dude, check out all this Lukic, Gakic, and my creatine. Like, just swallow a fucking handful of pills, and it's like literally was nothing. It was just placebo.
But it's interesting that you guys brought that up. When I was younger, I think
it was like 2 days ago.
Shut up.
Back in my day.
But when I was like younger, maybe in like the 12, 13 years old, I did somewhat predicted that we would be in an environment where men just wouldn't be men anymore, to be honest. Just because I was at that age, I was like, think it was like 2010, 2013, you can kind of see the transition from what it was a decade or two prior to all of a sudden what it was becoming. Bringing the whole college institution into it, where they were essentially promoting different certain agendas, and those certain agendas end up being more of an environmental thing. And now we have less competitive individuals, particularly in younger men and younger girls. They're not as competitive as much as they used to be, where like when we were younger, we had to like work really hard and then kind of like travel places, play sports, be very active. But then like it got to a certain point where sports were just like, oh, you can't be too hard at playing sports. Or and there's like the participation trophies that happen out of nowhere. So taking all those things into consideration, that probably most likely why we're at. Because personally, I think as young kids, we should be able to be competitive somewhat, whether it just be from being competitive in terms of like working, in terms of like working out, in terms of like trying to get the girl, trying to get this and all that stuff. Once you start taking that away, like that need for survival suddenly just goes away. And I think that might be why we're seeing these drops in hormone production and an increase in other hormone production. Keeping that going for a long period of time. Plus, we are seeing more kids who are taking stuff a little bit over the counter, and that also tends to damage a lot of their hormone levels.
Correct.
So there's a lot of factors here.
And that goes back to the idea that, like, you know, the competitive nature is like, you are seeing like foreign parents, or the fact that I'm like having to make a cooking channel to teach adults how to fucking cook is sad within itself. But you're seeing like these, so people my age, because I'm 34, people my age have kids that are like 15 to 18, you know, whatever. And it's like, I'm having to teach them how to cook. So it's like, you know, their kids are just eating whatever shit they buy from the store, or whatever shit they buy from fast food. And there's enough evidence out there that stuff is not, it's lacking in micronutrients. A lot of it's high in soy, a lot of the products that decrease testosterone production and increase estrogen. So you see a lot of this, but it's also taking away the competitive nature. Like, I'm the person in the gym, like people look at me as like the show off or an asshole, because like, I'll see someone lifting weight and I'm like, I want to go lift it. Like, all right, let's do this. Like, I want to compete with you. Like, I want to push you to be better. And it's not like, you don't see it a lot anymore, man. Like, Arnold and back in the day when they would train, like, you know, the pumping iron, such a great example. Like Lou's pumping up for the Olympia and he's doing soul crushers, and Arnold's, what is this? Some girly weight. But it's just like, it's like, are you going to push yourself? Are you going to do a little more? Like, do you want to be better? But people nowadays, like if you're someone that goes in the gym and you want to be better, people are like, why? What are you doing this for? It's like, because I fucking want to be. Like, what? Do you not want to be a better person? Like, do you not want to push yourself to be more? You know, like handstands that I do, powerlifting, moving, and bodybuilding, and there's just more stuff I want to do. But it's like, people no longer have that desire to be more. They just want to be. People just want to be. That's it. No, I just want to be here and watch my Netflix. But they don't want to be. They don't want to become anything. They just want to be. And you're seeing that bleed into the younger generations. And I think that's what's affected them, because I've spoken with younger kids and like, I don't really know what I want to do. So, dude, when I was younger, I wanted to do so many things that I didn't know what to do. That was my issue. Like, these kids just have no clue what they want to do with their life. Like, when I was younger, I was like, I wanted to do so many things that I was trying to figure out what route to take or what path to take, you know, and it's a big difference. They're just not, and you don't have to, and everything's in front of you, like Instagram, you know, everything, the Netflix, the video games, you know, oh, I'm hungry, Uber Eats. Like, you have no desire to, survival's there. Like, there's no need for it. There's no longer scarcity. There's no longer, like the need for survival. It's just, you don't have to, because everything is right there at the palm of your hands.
So, yes, I've completely spaced on what I was going to say, but no, I mean, like, you're completely right. But at the end of the day, I don't think that this was like a one generation thing. A lot of people blame our generation.
It's been,
it happened after the baby boomer generation. So it wasn't the baby boomer generation, because they were coming from basically like war times, right? And then you had the following generation that, okay, I'm going to work for a corporate company and then I'm going to die. And that's our parents, actually, right? Like, that's essentially how they were programmed. You work for a corporate company, you live a cush life, or a comfortable life, maybe cush, I guess. And then that's it. and then you pass it off and you hope that your next generation is better than you are, which is how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to pass that torch off.
Yeah.
The issue is when you're not teaching, when you're all that your kids see is you working for someone else and not trying to better yourself every single day. And what does that teach them? It teaches them, oh, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get a college education because now that's
career
required. Yeah, that's
white picket fence
required to get a corporate job. And then I'm going to go to a corporate job. And that's my life. And that's it. And they don't work the extra hours to better themselves. So it's been a generational pass off. And what they're teaching the now generation in college is what's alarming. And what they're teaching the now generation is, yeah, let's not pay for anything. Let's have the government just baby us because we don't know how to pay taxes. So we're just going to give them all our money and they can do whatever they want with it. And that's what they're teaching. Like, it's called socialism. It's called communism. Communism is a form of socialism. And that's what a lot of the college students are being taught. But it's like, until you get out of school and you work and you realize how hard you work for the money that you make, and then the government still takes 35 to 40% of it, and then that really stings. And they're not experiencing that. So they're being taught something that they don't even know anything about. They don't know how taxes feel. They don't know how working feels. Most of these people, like, I mean, when I was in school, I was working to get through school because I couldn't freaking eat food if I didn't work. So it's definitely like an evolutionary society thing that has happened over time, where we have become more reliant on other people. Now, it's really interesting because when the gentrification started happening with our cities, though, we saw a lot of small businesses and a lot of unique ideas starting to sprawl. And then what ended up happening is our cities got burned down to the ground.
Okay,
Every single major city burned down to the ground. Like, oh, that's perfectly normal. Yeah, don't worry about the small business owners. Yeah, it's done. Like, we're just going to go back to corporate America really fast. And now we're back to corporate America. So
you mean like through 2020, when it seemed like every small business was taken down, but all the corporations were allowed to thrive? Not like, that's not a conspiracy at all. That's just God science in your fucking face. The data's there. Like, anyone that doesn't believe that that's a different topic.
Yeah, no. I mean, but it's true. Like that literally happened, right? We saw the private businesses, and if the private businesses stayed around, it's because they were a cash business and they were not living off of loans. And the amazing thing about America is that you could take out a loan from the government or a loan from the bank, which is essentially the government itself, and you could create your business and try to build a better life for you and your future family. And that entrepreneurship we just saw got shot in the foot. And now everyone's probably scared right now to be an entrepreneur and to think outside the box. Everyone thinks they're an entrepreneur, but they're not willing to get uncomfortable. And then the ones that were willing to get uncomfortable, that were thriving in this economy, just got taken out. And then you have the people that are all supply chain, anyone that had supply chain and websites and all that stuff that were already ready for and already selling stuff online, they did very well because there were corporations that had millions and billions and trillions of dollars in them. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a whole nother topic of discussion, but we may get worse before we get better, because what I was in school, right, was the recession. It might as well have been a depression. It was so bad because like no one could make money essentially. Like it was really, really difficult. Like so many people lost everything. And I came from literally, my parents were married to getting divorced to I'm not going to go into further details, but my parents getting divorced, me having to support myself overnight. And then on top of it, like I had to work my way through school. So I saw the valuation of the dollar literally tear apart a marriage, right? Just simplistically alone. And that made me realize what money actually is. Money is just a security blanket at the end of the day. But if you're surviving off of money for your happiness, then it ruins you. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of my rant on it, but I think I can close my rant out there. It's just interesting how we've seen the evolution of society go, and our generation has been through a recession, and we're taught to be more comfortable because we had a recession happen. So having that consecutive W-2 income is really nice, right? And I'm still on a W-2 income, but I'm also getting out of my W-2 income. So, but I've been working towards that and working 70 to 80, it was most for minimum 60-hour weeks, 60 to 80-hour weeks every single week to get to the point where I can get out of that comfort zone, right? Did it aid me in getting out of that comfort zone? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I had to do what I needed to do to survive, but I also put in the extra hours to make sure that I could thrive in life.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem that we're facing currently now in our society today. It's they're not certain jobs, but also people are just becoming so comfortable with their lives that they're not trying to go out to fend for themselves or to get.
Yeah.
And because of that, like our society is like slowly kind of just like on a decline. Because I think when we think about like the idea of the animalistic nature of human or just animals in general, for there to be progression in a society, I don't want to bring gender into this, but men have to go out and fend for themselves. And if they're not going out and fending for themselves, you will have those who are willing to do it, and those will become like the abnormal individuals who are going out themselves, trying to survive, trying to live. They're going to be more successful. They're going to be very successful, while you have a streamer population of individuals who just don't want to do that. And I don't want to be the Darwinism guy in here, but survival of the fittest will happen.
100%.
It's similar to what Charles was saying, that we have like essentially these apexes that are coming out of the pack. It's not even alphas anymore. It's literally apex or your chopped liver. And like, it's crazy that like, and it's interesting that you brought it up, but it's no longer alpha versus beta. It's literally apex predators essentially that are coming out.
It's predator versus prey.
It's
predator versus prey.
Literally.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that this is way off topic of us, the training in general, but this happens. So, and it's something like, you know, what trends when you see like these people on social media that fit in my opinion, the more prey. But you see it's like these preys are building this. And I laughed because like I spoke about, his name's O3OG on Instagram. You know, he's currently still enlisted, but you know, we talk about like the alpha type of mentality. And it's like, you know, you see these dudes like boasting about things. And it's like, you know, he said it one time, he's like, you know, self-proclamation is mental masturbation. Like that's not the alpha. But you see these people like the wolf mentality nowadays drives me fucking nuts. Like the animal, like beast. And it's like, people, oh, it's a wolf pack. And it's like, dude, the thing that you don't understand about like the alpha, the apex, like the apex wolf does not need the pack. The pack needs the apex wolf. So you see these people like, oh yeah, I'm creating a wolf pack. You create a wolf pack because at the end of the day, like you can't do it alone. These people who just come out of nowhere and it's like, they don't have a group, they don't have a crowd, they don't have anything. And it's, you know, Charles Bukowski, I love like his poem of God, what was it? But is it basically, you know, God, I wish I could remember his actual poem. It's Genius of the Crowd by Charles Bukowski. And he talks about the idea of like, you know, be wary of those who seek people for their nothing alone. And it's like basically beware of those who seek crowds, for they are nothing alone. The apex predator does not need the crowd. It does not need shit, because it is the one that goes out there, gets its fucking food, comes back and leaves the scraps for every other motherfucker in their packs. So it's funny that we bring this topic up, because I always love when I see people like, oh, wolf or lion or this. Like, you shut the fuck up. Like you're none of that.
What kills me about the lion one is I'd rather live 30 years like a lion than 70 years like a sheep. It's like I'd rather live 70 years like I own this place. Like, why do you want to live 30 years instead of 70 years? That's like a terrible analogy. Like,
well, so and that's what it is. It's this constant need to be something outside of. And here's what it is. And I spoke to you about this. It's the idea of, you know what the most, me and OG talked about this. You know the most apex predator on this planet is? It's simple. Think about it. What's the most apex predator on this planet?
I mean, technically humans.
Why the fuck do you want to be anything else? We kill those animals and we hang their fucking skins. And you want to be them? You know how crazy that is? It's like, I could literally grab a gun, blast those things to shit. We are the most apex predators. So when I see people who like But here's the thing, like, because people are so not in tune with who they are as a human and like in the power that we have, they want to be like, ooh, I want to be a lion, I want to be a bear, tigers, oh my, you know, whatever the fuck it is. And it's like, dude, like, why? But it's because they don't understand their own animalistic instinct, their own desire, their own purpose, their own drive. So they have to attach it to something that, oh, I'd rather be 30 years a lion than a sheep. Like, I'd rather just live my life as a fucking human, because fuck both of those. Like, cool, lions are dope as shit. I love watching them tear the shit out of stuff. But I'm a human. Like, pretty awesome.
You know, you just quoted Wizard of Oz, right?
I know.
He's like trying to be all badass, and he's lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my.
Well, I feel some comic relief. So
to add more into that and to tie everything back into training as to why we started the whole idea of like and then younger generation and it leading up to where it's at right now. This is why a lot of people should just work out. To be quite honest, it's like literally it. Because like when you work out, you're actually able to go put yourself in a situation where you're competitive, and that competitive nature allows you to further thrive your life to be something better. Working out isn't simply as like, hey, I just want to look good. There's so many different other aspects of working out, whether that could just mean attracting the right mate, whether that just mean being financially stable and having the confidence to do what is it that you say that you're going to do, accountability aspect of it, the hardship, the struggles, and then resiliency. Like I see this all the time. It's like, especially for older generations like us and people who are older than us, working out for those who don't feel the need or drive to be competitive. Because once you're out of high school, once you're out of college, how else are you going to be competitive? Besides just work that like 9-to-5 job, stay consistent and comfortable all the time for the rest of your life. Where if you were to pick up something that allows you to be challenged, aka in my opinion, working out, now you can have much more things to do. You have more goals to strive for. You have more reason to do it. You have a reason to get the fuck out of bed.
Well, so it's funny you mentioned that, because what you do see a lot in life nowadays, especially with like the older generations, even people my age, is like there's competitive nature, but it's through money. Like the dude gets a job, oh, he buys a nice house. Like dude was like, I want a fucking nice house. Works more money, gets a house. Oh, I want a new vehicle. I want toys. I want this. It's like they're buying instead of feeding an internal self, like they're feeding this like view of who they are, but it's like that's just like these are just things of who you are. Like those are just things you own. They're materialistic objects. Like you don't, like, people aren't in the need, like people don't read books anymore. Like, dude, no. But you don't see a lot of that with people anymore. Like they sit down, they're like the old school dudes who like go sit down at their house, like drink fucking whiskey, read a book, talk about it, and just be bad motherfuckers. A lot of those dudes like OG gangsters and stuff. But you've seen this desire for people to just buy so much shit to like have this image of being an apex predator, but it's like you're not.
So and I've had this conversation because I've had some clients that are extremely wealthy, like stupid wealthy. And I'm like, look, you know how you got really wealthy and how uncomfortable you had to get there, and how uncomfortable it is to stay on the top and to keep getting better because it just gets harder and harder. I was like, well, that curve and that uncomfort is exactly what you need to do any other aspect in life to be successful at it. You want a physique that you've always wanted? It's the same exact mentality. It's like the mentality does not change. It's just instead of, like you said, material objects, you're working on yourself. And that's it. Yeah. Whether it's your mind, spirit, or body, right? It's all the same. But physical stuff is just a artificial inflation, like you're talking about, to bring a certain image. But at the end of the day, to get there and the will to drive to get there is all the same across the board for bettering yourself. So the fundamental pieces are in place. It's just maybe they weren't driven in that aspect, and now they want to be driven in that aspect. The most successful people that I know personally are very, very fit, and you will never know that they're wealthy. And when you show it up to their house, you're like, I'm not going to even ask questions, but because you know how their personality is, you know they're driving the gym, You know how their personality, like they're just positive, uplifting people, because not only do they work on their fiscal self, their financial self at the same time, but that all translated to all aspects of life instead of just focusing on one aspect at one time for like 30 years. But they could have built an empire within themselves as well as externally as well. So like whenever I get a very wealthy client, I try to explain that to them. I'm like, you know what you did to get rich? Do the same exact thing in the gym, the same mindset, because you want this, right? And if you didn't want this, you wouldn't have approached me in the first place. So it's definitely interesting that you brought that up, but it's the same exact mindset. It's just
so and this goes down like I've always spoken like the power of three, like you have the mind, body, soul, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and it goes on like that's family, fitness, and finance.
Family, fitness, finance. Yep.
3S. A lot of people are focusing on family and finances, but never fitness.
Well, because
you'll see people in the bodybuilding, you'll see people have the family and they'll have the fitness, but their finances are shit. You'll see people with a family and fitness, or like, and it's like, if any one of those are weak, like you're going to see an overall weakness throughout it all. So
the issue that people have, including pretty much everyone, when you're trying to get really uncomfortable, it's in one area and you lose the other two.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets very, very difficult, is having somewhat of a balance while you're focusing on one to grow, because it's so demanding, taxing mentally, spiritually, everything. Physically, it takes everything out of you and you tend to lose the other two. So if you're trying to actually better yourself, you tend to whack in two, but then you have to basically take the step back and recalibrate across the board on all three. And then you can go and divide and conquer again. But you need to be self-aware enough to realize that that's what you're doing, because you're going to destroy your life.
Yeah. And I've been on that path for years. I did put a little too much into like my self-fitness and not enough through like my finances. But I mean, it was a sacrifice to like get where I'm going now, and things are picking up. And I mean, I can't put a timeline on it. Everything that happened to me happened for a specific reason. At the end of the day, it's how I look at it. So, but now like finances are picking up, business is picking up, life is getting better. So it's like I've had like the fitness. The fitness is great. Obviously, family is very subjective with me, because I have a smaller family since, a lot of people passed away throughout my life. They're more like family for me are like the people that I keep within my circle. So that's like my family. And I'm constantly grooming that, with the people that I allow in my life. But yeah, fitness or like finances are picking up, exponentially right now. And obviously like I'm like the best shape of my fucking life. So it's, what is there to really say?
That's how it works though. Like when you get that balance and like everything syncs up and you just start bettering yourself in all aspects. It's kind of crazy how it works, but it has to do with more of the positive mindset thing. And once you become that positive affirmation point for yourself, everything just keeps getting better, and like nothing gets worse, because if something gets worse, it doesn't bother you at all. You're just like, whatever.
No, whatever, but move on. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how my life has been the past 6-7 months. Literally, after everything happened with my place, I kind of just really hard. Somehow being able to balance the finance, the family part, and the fitness, like Charles said, has always been there for me. It's one of those things I never let go, because the fitness was what gave me a reason to pursue other options. Like I used exercise and going to the gym, bodybuilding, and fitness as a general guide, but it does go to other different avenues of my life, like for finance wise, for family wise. I mean, if you look great, you look good, you're attractive, right? But also there's the personality aspect of it, how you have to carry yourself. So you can't like be too egotistic. You always have to like somewhat like take a step back, recalibrate everything, and kind of fix yourself in that we can understand. Because like with bodybuilding, we tend to see a lot of egos, like lots and lots of egos. And I think that's why for most bodybuilders, it's very hard for them to maintain a stable relationship. And if they can't have that stable relationship, there goes the family aspect of it. And that's just, I'm not talking like aspect of like having like a wife or kid or anything like that. A stable relationship can mean just having relationship with people in general. Because with Charles, what he just said, family is those within your circle. if your ego is just way out of there, nobody's going to want to be in your circle. And if
No.
they're not in your circle, you're kind of left without the family aspect, but you still have the fitness. Now that brings up the other questions. What happened to the finance aspect of it? Competitive bodybuilding itself can be very hard. It's very expensive.
No, 100%.
Ridiculously expensive. So you can't have just fitness. You need to be able to manipulate everything around in full circle for you to not just be the best version of yourself, but also being the best bodybuilders. As we've seen in the upper echelon Olympia and the bodybuilding competition, those who are truly successful are able to manage all three.
Yes. Phil Heath, best example. Phil Heath and Jay Cutler, I think, are like the best examples of balancing the top tier fitness careers with the business piece. And now Jay, I don't think was really dating anyone seriously until after he stepped out of bodybuilding, though. He's pretty well focused on those two aspects. And now he's been dating someone for a long time, or married maybe now. I don't know. I don't think he is, though. And then Phil's not married either, but he's been with someone that basically helped him go from ground zero all the way to the top, which is pretty badass to see. But he's always been one that really had all aspects balanced. He didn't really show it, like he really didn't, but at the end of the day, he did do it. So, and you don't have to post it on social media to be successful. So,
no. And that's just crazy to see, because like I think we've all seen like fitness, like powerlifting too, like powerlifting and bodybuilding literally tear families apart.
Yeah. And with that said, this overall is a pretty interesting conversation where we started off to where we're at now. This is kind of what we want to give you guys. We don't want it to just be strictly all just like, hey, you know what? Let's talk about bodybuilding and good job.
Talk about an hour of training.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that gets boring. People want to hear something different. People are surrounded by training and nutrition all the time that sometimes there's more value to themselves than just working out and looking really good. And we would love to expand more on things like that rather than just say, yeah, let's talk about working out and like training and stuff like that. We want you to know that like us as individual, as bodybuilders, as athletes or whatever, that there's more to us than essentially just working out. We're smart. Dave's in IT. Charles is like the oldest here, but he's like super ridiculously smart and very philosophical. Like me, on the other hand, I just go wherever the heck I feel like I can kind of get something. But I try to keep myself well informed, which goes back to what Charles was saying about reading, spending time reading books, learning new information, because you want to be well diverse into everything, not just one thing. And you don't want to put everything into one single basket. So that's generally how I look at it. And we're going to try to get this to be a little bit more friendly. And see how much it grows. We're going to have a different options about. It's going to be something called like the prep files, the prep boys. There's going to be ones we're going to be essentially interviewing pros, because being able to compete at the pro level now, and Charles being a very top ranked powerlifters, and David kind of like coaching clients who are at the pro level, we're going to give you guys essentially the opportunity to see bodybuilders or just athletes in general in a different light. And
behind the bodies to bring that back.
Yeah. And prep boys and prep files.
Prep boys, PC gym reviews. So on so forth.
Yeah.
I can't flex because Paul's flexing. So I'm
gonna minimize my body as much as possible.
I actually like put my arms completely out. You don't even know that I have a t-shirt on until I just did that.
Right.
I'm gonna start a podcast with this with Paul.
Yeah.
Just like hiding everything. But overall, thank you for making it this long to this entire thing, and look forward for more next week. And I'll be posting some more videos and whatnot. So, thank you guys.